Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to the attic. It's time for another voicemail. Today's voicemail is from an anonymous caller. Let's listen to what they have to say.
Hi Lloyd, you can use this for your channel, but I would like to remain anonymous. I'm currently PMO and just feeling a bit stuck at the moment because I want to go full on POMO, but unfortunately, I'm married to somebody who is very strong in this. And yeah, I thought I'd just come on here and share my experience. I grew up as a witness. My family was very much at the forefront of the congregation. Um, I was a pioneer straight after school, got baptized at 13. But in my early 20s, I had a brief relationship with a worldly man, which led to a traumatic experience where I was sexually assaulted. I confided in my parents, and their immediate reaction was disbelief. They thought I was trying to avoid the consequences of fornication, so I came up with this story. This reaction was terrifying, and it created a significant disconnect between us. I felt very alone. Um, After I had spoken to them, they immediately reported me to the elders. Mind you, when they found out I had decided to end things, so my dad walked into the room with me with a bunch of pills in my hand, and that's how everything came out. But as soon as we had the conversation, he was on the phone with the elders to let them know that there's a case of fornication. Um, so I had the committee case like 1 or 2 days. I think it was 2 days afterwards. And it was me in front of these three men, and I had to go into graphic detail of my assault because of the questions they asked me. Instead of showing me kindness, they told me that I had lost my purity and needed to be disciplined. So they silently reproved me and instructed me not to speak to anyone because more than three people knowing would lead to a public reproval. The congregation was informed that I was no longer a pioneer, but they were unaware of the reasons why. And in that period, I faced coldness and isolation because I was viewed as bad association. The elders even made follow up visits to ensure that I hadn't spoken about it to anyone. Um, so this was the beginning of me waking up. This happened quite a few years ago, but I have never gotten over it and have never been able to view the organization the same way. Um, I've tried to speak about it to my parents and my husband, but it feels like I'm hitting brick walls each time. They just think I'm angry and need to forgive, and that's the problem with me, that I'm just not a forgiving person. I want to leave. I want to go full on POMO, but I feel stuck because I know that it will come at a very great cost, and I don't know how to deal with this. I know that it's what feels like the right thing to do would be to just walk away and start fresh. Um, But then I'm also constantly left with these nagging doubts that maybe I am wrong and maybe this is the truth, even though I don't believe that at all. But every now and again, that happens to me because of the indoctrination that I've had my whole life. Um, at a point now where I don't know where to start from scratch because this has been my whole life. So I wanted to share my story, and I don't know, maybe others out there can relate. Um, yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for leaving that message. That must have taken so much courage and bravery on your part. And you've left this message knowing that others will relate, and sharing your story, sharing a very traumatic story so that others can benefit. And I think that's incredibly brave and selfless of you. So you have my full respect and admiration. I do need to get a couple of things out of the way before I launch into this. First of all, not everyone who watches my channel will be familiar with what PIMO or POMO means. So PIMO, physically in, mentally out. POMO, physically out, mentally out. So you are describing feeling stuck in the Jehovah's Witness religion, physically in, but mentally out. And you are wanting to get physically out rather than just mentally out, basically. I'm just explaining for those who don't know all of these kind of all of this ex-Jehovah's Witness lingo that we're using. I also need to re-emphasize, as I do in nearly all of these voicemails, that I am not a mental health practitioner in any way, shape or form. I've had no mental health training, and what you've shared definitely touches on mental health. You've even described at one point trying to take your own life, and my advice should never be kind of the first port of call, as it were, in these situations. You definitely should be seeking the advice and help of a mental health expert if you're not doing so already. It could be that you are already seeing a therapist, but if you're not seeing a therapist, given the gravity of the situation and the things that you've described, it would be very, very advantageous for you to at least consider opening up to a therapist about what's happened to you and taking their advice. So with all of that out of the way, I think, like you say, many will relate to your feelings of being stuck. You are essentially in a hostage situation where you are having to pay lip service to an organization that has failed you. They failed you when you were sexually assaulted, and they failed you when they allowed you to get baptized into the organization age 13 without knowing all of the things that you needed to know about the organization's true history. They fail you every single day that they are lying to you and using you as an instrument to recruit other people into their charlatanry, for want of a better word. So it must be incredibly and intensely frustrating, and I do sympathize. I think if we were to boil things down, when you talk about a very great cost, because you seem to intuitively know that the right thing to do would be to get out of this toxic situation that you're in. You talk about there being a very great cost, and I think we all know what that is. It's shunning, but also in your case, you have a partner who is, it seems, very heavily invested in the organization. In other words, they fully believe it, and if you were to leave your partner, it would probably result in the collapse of your marriage, and that is one of the most stressful things that a human being can go through, a divorce. So it's one of those situations where there is pain on either side of whatever decision you make. There's pain if you stay, and there's pain if you leave. And when it comes to making these really difficult life choices, you just, I guess, have to weigh up which is worse, essentially. The good news is that no one is pressuring you to make a decision right away. No one's saying, clock's ticking, what's it going to be? You get to, at your own pace, reach this very difficult decision, knowing that there's going to be pain on either, in either eventuality. All I will say is that when I've been faced with situations where I've needed to make these decisions, and in the case of leaving Jehovah's Witnesses, decided that it would be intolerable for me to essentially live a lie and pretend to be someone I'm not. Even though there was an enormous amount of pain attached to that decision, I don't look back for one moment and think, oh, I really made a bad decision there. It's unequivocally a yes when it comes to asking the question, did I make the right decision? There are zero regrets. I think anything that's forcing you to be someone other than who you are, when it all boils down to it, it is something that you really want to be putting distance between yourself and it, whether it's like a toxic relationship or whether it's a controlling group that you've somehow managed to get into. Anything that's stopping you from being you, essentially, I would suggest is self-evidently something that you need to leave behind. The question is how to do it in such a way that you are causing yourself minimal pain and you're, managing people's expectations where necessary. These are all things that you need to consider. It's why I always encourage people who are thinking of getting out or wanting to get out to have an exit plan, to have some kind of strategy. Are you going to really quit cold turkey, or are you going to kind of gradually kind of drop off with your meeting attendance until people hardly notice whether you're there or not? That sort of thing. Is there some kind of plan in place for, let's say you do end up on your own, you're no longer with your partner, you have to kind of think about your accommodation, your work situation, all of those things. These are all things that you can at least hypothetically be thinking about now before you've even made your decision, so that you're kind of moving the chess pieces into position so that when the decision is made, if the decision is to get out, it's as painless as it possibly can be, because you've already put in a tremendous amount of work in making sure that you land softly, essentially. I think that's the main advice I would give you. But nobody can make this decision for you. I can't make it for you. The viewers can't make it for you. Your partner can't make it for you. Your elders certainly can't make it for you. I do relate as well to the nagging doubts. I think that's completely normal. You should never feel any amount of guilt when it comes to, these little kind of half thoughts that pop into your mind. Am I making a terrible decision? Is this really the truth? Is it me that's the problem? It's inevitable when we've undergone decades of having our thoughts and behavior coded for us by an organization. It's inevitable that we're going to second guess and wonder whether we're not making a terrible decision. I think I even described it in a video that I made about an earthquake that we had here in Croatia, about how there was this earthquake and it happened around the same time as COVID, and it happened early in the morning. So I was kind of already a little bit kind of only semi-conscious and not able to fully apply my thinking faculties. So you have COVID, you have my house is shaking, and almost inevitably my brain went to, okay, Armageddon bingo card, have I made a terrible misjudgment about Armageddon, and is this perhaps Armageddon happening now? It only happened in my brain for what must have been a split second before my critical thinking skills were able to engage and kind of boot it up, and I was fully functioning, and I could see that, of course, this wasn't Armageddon, it was just a coincidence. But I think that's similar to what you're describing, and I'm telling you that story just to reassure you that there is absolutely nothing abnormal whatsoever about what you've described. I think it's especially to be expected in a situation such as yours, which is so traumatic, where you have had to endure sexual assault and you've been ignored by people who should have been listening to you and showing empathy and helping you seek justice against your attacker. Given everything that you've been through, it's even more to be expected that you will have these moments of self-doubt. And you mentioned that you've never gotten over it being, the trauma that you went through exacerbated by the failure to take action and the way you were framed as being guilty in that situation. Again, completely understandable, and all the more reason why you should urgently be seeking out some help with your mental health. But again, on the question of exiting, I think what the right thing to do is. It's just a question of taking your time with the decision and, like the Bible verse says, calculating the cost before you build a tower. Yes, there are some things in the Bible that are just universally true. Good ideas. Not everything is nonsense, as you would expect with a man-made book. Calculate the cost. Make sure that your exit is going to be as smooth as possible if you decide that you do want to exit. And just know, regardless of what your decision is, that you are deserving of love and happiness. And no matter what's happened to you, no matter how terribly people have treated you, you deserve to be loved and respected and listened to for who you are when you speak your truth and when you interact with others. And I really hope that you're able to reach that place. And I thank you again for sharing your story, because it will definitely be something that my viewers can relate to, as will be evident in the comments below. But that's all we have time for. I hope you have found this voicemail helpful. If you would like to leave a voicemail, the thing to do is go to speakpipe.com/Cedars, remembering to indicate clearly if you don't want me to broadcast your message on this channel. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching.